everyone, you're watching VGO40 and we are taking a look at World of Kings and Sky Arena in adventure mode. Now go ahead and clear out all the mobs to the first boss. There's actually not a lot of mobs in this dungeon and it goes fairly quick. I really like it. So go ahead and clear out to the first boss. I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure the best approach for boss 1. The whole idea is you don't want to move if you can help it. Once you get to, I think it's 6 stacks, you put a hammer that spins around the room. So here I put down a marker for everybody to stack on that marker in hopes that we could limit some of the movement. And this worked pretty decently at first, but there is an AoE that appears and it's not always directed straight at you, which was the way it looked like the first time I ran it, that it always pointed at you, or at the tank. But here it looks like it doesn't do that. So instead, we did all stand in the marker, and that seemed to work pretty well, like I said. You have to make sure you don't move a lot. However, eventually you get kind of this cone of damage that goes towards players, and you do have to move out of it. So there is some movement required. I think that the best approach for this would be, if you do move and you get enough stacks, move the, if you get red text over your head, move all the way to the back of the area so that you're not dropping hammers on everyone. Because here it worked well because we're all sharing damage and we were all together. So we didn't have to move to share damage, but you can see the red text over the player's head in the back. And once that happens, after a few seconds, it drops this spinning hammer. And this is where we started having problems. So here the spinning hammer goes out to the back further, and I think that that's a good spot. You just kind of move it away from the group, and then the group can still kind of stay focused in one area. The problem we had is when things started exploding, kind of in doing this directional AoE, we really need to move to get out of this because it does do a knockback and some lower players will die from it. So then we ended up getting these spinning hammers in the group, which started to become a problem. So for this boss, it's really less the mechanics that you have to worry about. I mean, other than sharing a little bit of damage and avoiding some yellow areas, it's really more about the movement. So I think that it probably wouldn't matter too much if you moved around a lot, if you took the red text all the way to the back instead of continuing to stand on the group, which is really where we started having issues because everybody was piled up together. So I'm going to guess that I'm going to do an update for this part of the video. However, just keep in mind, don't move around a lot because once you get 6 stacks, you're going to drop hammers, these spinning hammers, and then it starts to become a pain. And then the other thing is if you do get the red text over your head from the spinning hammers, make sure to move out away from the group and then you can move back in. And I think having a designated spot kind of in the middle where you all stand will be beneficial as long as we can manage to take those hammers out of the raid. So that's the approach I would say to use for this boss. Hopefully this helps a little bit. I think that it needs to be perfected more. And like I said, I'll update this video once I'm able to kind of get a better handle on how we can do this particular boss. Okay, moving on to bosses 2 and 3. Now there's a bunch of mobs in between, not a whole ton. There's some named ones, so go ahead and clear all those out and head up the hill to bosses 2 and 3. Okay, so for bosses 2 and 3, these actually I didn't find all that challenging. The thing that you kind of have to keep in mind is there's this purple meter in the center of the screen, and you need to make sure that the higher it is, the more damage you do, because it's how much the crowd likes you. The other thing is there's this kind of white circle in the background. You do not want to go outside the white circle. So here it says you have to gain support of the audience. The audience will actually like throw things at you that end up in little fire puddles if you are not careful about gaining their support. So here you just saw a player got knocked out of the arena. I think standing closer to the edge is better. It will do a half the room attack on the tank, so just make sure to face the boss away from the DPS for this particular fight. Okay, up next, there are two mechanics happening. One is that the boss attacks each of the people in one in turn. It seems like it's not a huge issue. The other is in the background, you'll see this odd circle. That means you're going to drop a fire puddle, so just move it to the edge, and I'll show you a better view of the fire puddle in a little bit. But just make sure, I think if you kind of keep the boss towards the edge a little bit more, it gives the DPS and the healers a little bit more room for the knockback so they don't end up out of the circle. Okay, occasionally in this fight, the audience will get mad at you and an audience member will come out to help fight. Just grab the audience member and DPS him down. Again, here came the half the room thing, so just make sure to face the boss away from DPS. There's a shield on the boss that needs to be broken fairly fast. I never really found this a problem, but if your DPS is really low, it might be an issue if you don't break the shield fast enough. Again, there was a push the player back kind of thing, but since we're fairly close to the edge, he didn't get knocked out of the arena. And that's pretty much it for the mechanics. It's really just this half room thing and watching being knocked back out of the arena. I found this boss fairly simple and really nothing overly noteworthy to add for him. Actually, for either of these two bosses, they just, you just kind of go through them and kill them. Here's another round of where the boss hits each of the players. I actually skipped this mechanic in my other runs, so I think that it really just depends on your DPS if you end up having this mechanic or not. It's not really a huge issue. Here I'm also going to be getting the attack by the audience where I'm going to drop the fire puddle, and here you can see the fire puddle here. Just kind of move it out of the way to the side and then go ahead and move out of the way of that. That way you're not standing in the fire puddles. But as long as it's not really in the middle, I think it's not going to be too hard to avoid. And once your audience participation gets, I think, above about 40%, or of that purple bar kind of in the center lower screen, once it gets above 40%, the audience is kind of neutral and won't attack you too much. And then once it gets above 50%, you get a damage buff to help with your DPS. Okay, I love running with lower DPS groups because it really shows all the mechanics, but at the same time, the fight can get a little long. So we're going to fast forward a bit and go ahead and move on to boss 3. Okay, I actually, without watching the video back, I can't think of any of the mechanics for this fight, so there's nothing overly remarkable. The bar does reset to 0, so you have to gain the support of the audience again. The notes for this fight do say something about it being challenging for healers, so I think it hits pretty hard for tanks. And also, it often will target the player with the highest amount of hit points. So just be aware that this might be a little bit more challenging for tanks and some of the players with the higher hit points. So here, one of the players got a yellow circle around them. Just move out. That's pretty normal mechanics. Okay, here it says one of the players has red text over their head, and then they get this yellow line, and it says players without that need to help block it. So I just stood in front of the player that was targeted to help block the spear that was being thrown at them. And here again, we're getting another audience member. Just grab them and bring them towards the boss so that we can easily kill him quickly. Alright, up next we got another yellow circle around one of the players. Just move back and stay away from the group for that. And you can see that here. There's also a round of share damage that comes up, so just watch for the share damage and share that. Immediately after share damage, it usually does these yellow lines connected to the tank. So this one you want to stay away from the teammates, as you see for the message there. You don't want to stand in front of the tank for that, like you would for the other yellow line where you're supposed to be blocking the player. So one is from red text over a player's head and you want to block the line, inside that yellow line. The other is a share damage followed by that yellow line where you don't want to block it. Okay, that's pretty much it for this fight. I'm going to fast forward through some of it. So you get the circles followed by the red text over a player's head. A lot of DPS in between each one of those, so I'm just kind of fast forwarding a bit. Here's the red text over the player's head. the player can move back a little bit. Looks like they had a red line connected to them, and you stand in front of them in that rectangle of yellow. Followed by more sheer damage and the line connected to the tank where you do not want to stand in front of the tank. So just here the tank moves away from everybody else. And that's it for the fight. I mean, that's all the mechanics there is. It just repeats the same thing over and over. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through the rest of this. That's all I have. If you have any comments on better ways to do some of these fights, especially for the first one, please leave them in the description. And once I get a chance, I will update the video with better mechanics for the first one. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.